Okay, so let's talk about this, the Ronin S, and what I believe to be the ultimate Ronin S filming setup. So I'm gonna go over this top to bottom, left to right, every single intricate detail on how I've constructed over 2 years what I believe to be the ultimate Ronin S setup. Let's dive in. Let's do this. Well, that sucked. Let's talk about this guy. Now, this is all kind of really focused around the Ronin S, but really in some ways it should be focused, I think, on the Blackmagic pocket cameras, the 6K and the 4K, both amazing cameras, and why you would want to really stabilize them in a way that works in an amazing filming production where you have tons of flexibility. You can kind of do anything you want. Here we have I think it's called the Asun Cine Eye. And this is an HDMI transmitter. If you haven't seen it or don't know anything about that specifically, just do a YouTube search on it. There's a lot of reviews on it, but so far I found it to be an amazingly capable and excellent piece of kit. Basically, you just plug this into your HDMI output from your camera, and this sends an HDMI signal to many devices, many mobile devices. So this one will do up to 3. So I have one here, I have one right here. And basically what you're seeing is a device that will run for 5 hours on its own battery, built-in battery, non-removable. And it basically, like I said, it just transmits your video signal. So you can pick up your video signal on all kinds of mobile devices. If you're like me, you've got a bunch of those laying around, which is cool because you don't need to buy an extra HDMI monitor and you don't need to buy extra NP batteries, which is how most of the wireless transmitters run. So the wireless HDMI transmitters are typically a transmitter unit, a receiver unit. HDMI cables between both of those connect to a camera or a monitor, and depending on which one you're using, and then also Sony NP style batteries. So you need to have a lot of stuff. It means more charging, basically more hassle, more stuff to carry with you. All of those things to me are negatives. This is a huge positive because it's literally just this unit, has USB-C power. And it works fantastic. In addition to that, with the Ronin S, comes with this little cable that plugs into this little port. Sorry, my bad. This little port right here on the side of the Ronin S with this cable. And then on the other side is a USB-C cord. So you can use this cord that does come with the Ronin S to charge this guy if you run past 5 hours, and it will just power it all within the Ronin S battery, which is fantastic. And this Ronin S battery in the handle grip lasts forever. So I would have no problem with that. You could optionally also power the camera through a specialty cable you would have to order that powers the Blackmagic camera through these front AC ports as well. So lots of options there for powering. And let's go back to this guy here real quick. So we've got this little ditty here where this is connected in a kind of a forward, like flat laying motion. And the reason for that is so that I can rotate the camera into underslung mode or all kinds of different ways without a big thing in the top hitting this back piece. So hitting this right here. So if you have, oops, wrong way. It's a little backwards for me. So as you can see right here, we have plenty of clearance on the camera, and then if we go even farther, again, plenty of clearance in really every direction. And that's pretty awesome because you can go underslung. You can do that cool rotational shot that the Ronin S was famous for when it came out. And it just gives you a lot more freedom of movement that you wouldn't have if you designed this in a different way. I'll also add that I do have a SmallRig cage that I use on my Pocket 6K camera that goes around this. And if you use the cage, which I've done many times on this, it works great, except that it makes the camera too tall and it ends up hitting this back part and you can't use it to go underslung anymore. So I'm going to go over a quick release plate that allows that all to work, so I can go into an underslung mode and move this in all directions. So next thing is this 90-degree cold shoe plate. So this allows me to adapt this to be able to go forward. I'll go over that and put all these items in the description below. So here I have the Ronin S focus motor and the Tilta Nucleus Nano. Let's go over each of these because they each have their strengths and weaknesses. The nice thing about the Ronin S focus motor is that this one, I have it set up for the zoom lens, the zoom part of the lens right now, of course. It has a focus wheel that is integrated into the gimbal, which means you don't have to find power for it. It's always there. You don't have to pack it in a separate way. It's pretty low profile, and it actually has a really nice flow, nice resistance to it. Feels great. I like it. The only problem that I have with this focus motor is that you can't really position it in the best way possible. It's always positioned a little too far forward, which means my thumb has a hard time reaching it when trying to use it in a normal situation. So that's that. But the really cool thing about using the Ronin S focus motor on this is that typically zoom rings have a lot more tension to them than a focus ring on photographic lenses like these. So when you try to rotate them, you have to put a little bit more force, a little more torque into it. And the Ronin S focus motor has an enormous amount of torque to it. So it will, honestly, it will usually take these focus gears or the ones that come with it, ironically, it will, if you put these on your focus ring or your zoom ring, excuse me, and then try to use that motor on it, a lot of times when it tries to calibrate, which is the easiest thing ever, all you do is just tap this button on the side 2 times, and then it auto calibrates because zoom rings have hard stops on each side. So when it does that, it will usually go to the end and then just keep spinning the ring because you can never get these freaking things tight enough. They always are too loose. So, and the reason is by design, they have these little teeth that they integrate into, and you can't just like get enough tightness to them where they're actually stick. And it'll, like I said, it'll just spin. And when it spins, it causes a lot of problems. So one of them is it'll come around and this little tail will catch on everything and stop it. Or it won't allow your teeth to engage. So you can't even really use the focus motor at that point. These are pretty terrible. The other huge problem with these things is that they flex so hard from side to side. So enter the solution to that, which is what I have on here, follow focus gears. So you can find these at followfocusgears.com. And these things are rock hard. I mean, this takes absolutely no energy. This, I can't even move at all. It's so strong, extremely well made. These are 3D printed, specifically made for every specific lens diameter on both the focus ring and the zoom ring. So you go to their site, you tell them which lens you want your focus gears to be made for. Here I have black, gray, red. I also have white, and they have a bunch of other colors like orange and lots of really good stuff. These are amazing, and these solve a lot of big problems with focus gears that have been around forever. These things are basically worthless. These are amazing. These solve the problem. I highly recommend you get them. Go to the link, support. It's awesome. So let's get on to the next one, the Tilta Nucleus Nano. Amazing focus motor. Here you can see the focus wheel for that. And there's not much to it. Some people have complained about it not having enough torque. I have not had that problem. I've tried it on both the zoom ring and the focus ring. Both of them, it works just fine. And so maybe some people had some bad QC issues with a previous model or something. Maybe mine being newer has no problems with it. I don't know. But all I know is mine works fantastic. It works great every time. My only thing is I would love for it to be able to be, to be able to adjust in the software or whatever you do. Maybe there's an app for it and I've never downloaded it, but I would love to be able to basically fine tune the amount of play that a focus ring has, because I use the 100mm macro, and then that lens notoriously has, like, if you move the focus ring just the slightest bit, it will fall completely out of focus because it has such a wide range of focus in that lens because it's a macro lens. And so it would be really nice to be able to calibrate this motor to be able to pull a long distance on the actual wheel and only move a little bit, basically changing that lens into one that's a lot more precise for manual focusing. So that would be a really nice addition. And maybe it's there. I have to look into that and see if there's an app for it. I could be wrong on that, but it's honestly a small gripe because even the way it's set up right now is infinitely better than just trying to pull focus with your hands, because it does make it more precise. It does slow it down a little bit. So once it's calibrated, of course. So why do I have this set up the way I do? I'll get to that in a second, actually. Let's stay up here on this part. Now, the next thing, coming down the rails here, let's get around to this side of the camera. And this takes forever. You get a nice shot of I'm sure you're getting a nice shot of my whole room here. All right, so over here. Now, if you're using the 6K camera, you'll have probably a bigger problem with this. I'm a firm believer that especially on gimbals, you need to have 2 points of contact with your camera. Why camera manufacturers insist on making cameras with only a single 1/4-20 thread on them blows my mind, because it should never be that way. It's not a secure connection. I've had so many times when they loosen, or even if they loosen a little bit and you're using focus gears, the focus gears don't engage. So having the camera secure is so important to having a whole system that works properly. So I have one, this is an offset quick release plate made for the Ronin S. And I'll give you a link to that one below. This one's working fantastic for me. I love it. But I wanted to get a few points of contact. So I went through my parts bin. I found all kinds of stuff. So my suggestion for the Blackmagic Pocket 6K is that you use the lens, lens support, which I have right here. That will help get rid of that problem, and it'll help keep it nice and tight. The other thing that I've used with the 4K model right here is I have 3 points of contact with it. So the one on the camera, the one with the Metabones adapter plate, and then the third one is the lens support. And the Metabones plate I had to customize a little bit. So what I did was I went through my parts bin and I found this little guy. So this part is from the Blackmagic Pocket 4K cage from SmallRig, and this is the Metabones attachment point. So on the front of the cage, there's 2 screws that this goes into, mounts right in, and then you can put the third one into that tripod foot from the speed booster. And then that secures the adapter to the camera and to the cage. It makes a very, very strong system with lots of points of contact. And I've heard that from some people that the body can flex a little bit on these. I haven't ever seen that, but some people have complained about it. So what I did was I took the screw that goes into the tripod foot from this part, and I was able to get, it's a longer screw. That's the whole key here, is that it's a longer 1/4-20 screw with the bottom of the threading it's not there, so you can put it into the tripod plate, into the quick release plate, slide it over into position where you need it, and then screw it in, just like every tripod screw in existence. They all have the bottoms of the threading isn't there. So that's how this one is. It made it very nice and easy to just screw it right up in, and it attaches perfectly. I just got 2 washers with gaff tape around them so they don't kind of like shimmy around. And that one screw goes all the way through all of it, creating 3 points of contact. Nice, secure system. So on to the next. Both of these motors are capable of being, this is something I didn't mention, but because the Ronin S has 2 power ports in the front and then also one on the side, you can power both the focus motor and both the DJI focus motor and the Tilta Nucleus Nano. And these are both from cables that are supplied with the focus motors when you get them. So you don't have to get extra cables, which is super nice. It's really, really thoughtful that Tilta included a Ronin S specific cable with their system, because they make their own gimbal. So you would think that most camera manufacturers would want you to buy their own gimbal for it to work, or buy an extra connection cable at least, but they just include it. It's amazing. So going down this here, I'm gonna I'm gonna actually skip down to this part and come back to the quick release plate, because that I have to take all of this apart and show you a little bit more closely what I've done. But essentially, really briefly, I have taken a tap and die kit for $1/4 $20, which I highly recommend you get from Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. Tap and die kit. It's the best investment ever if you do a lot of filming, because what you do is you can tap anything. Like you can just put a screw anywhere you want. I can put it in this table. I can put it in this light stand, whatever I want, and have an extra attachment point for all of my stuff. So I've done that in this quick release plate. So I put 2 holes in, because again, I believe you should always have 2 holes for everything to keep it from swaying. I put a SmallRig 15mm rod adapter into it. So the quick release plate now has attached directly to it a 15mm rod attachment plate that I can just put follow focus motors onto, which is amazing, to be honest, because I can actually pull this camera off, and let's just say I had 2 Nucleus Nanos on here. I could control both of them. All I'd have to do is get like a USB little battery bank and plug both of them into that. And then I could use that on a shoulder rig or whatever I wanted, and power the whole system. Works fantastic. It's awesome. So again, I'll show you in more detail how I did that and how specific the tolerances have to be. I mean, it was like 1/10 of a millimeter distance that I got on it. I was very happy with how it ended up being drilled. So really cool stuff there. Now let's go down below all the motors. So here you have this guy, a friction arm attached to a NATO rail. This is all being connected by this SmallRig collar clamp designed for the Ronin S. Highly recommend this because it allows you to attach a bunch of stuff to it. So here, like I said, I have the monitor, which is obviously just a phone. This is just an old iPhone 7 I had laying around. It has some broken stuff on it, so I don't use the phone anymore, which made for a perfect extra monitor. And this guy, of course, just like all NATO rail stuff, can just be slid out, moved, taken off super easily. Over here we have our Nucleus Nano follow focus, and now I'll get to this. So I'll film myself here, why don't we? So here you can see with my hands, I'm able to hold this grip while rotating the focus motor. Really, really cool stuff. And actually, why don't I just put this back on here? That way I can, right on, there we go. Wow, I'm like really white. So let's do that and let's zoom in here. All right, cool. So I'm able to have a really nice grip in 2 different spots. As you can see on here, my fingers go all the way behind it. And let's talk about this grip for a second. When this one comes, it's, in my opinion, way too smooth. So I wrapped gaffer tape on it and then layered it up for little grips for your fingers, right like that. So it's a really nice piece now, and my fingers don't slip anymore. So yeah, my fingers can fit in here, and I have pretty easy access to the focus motor, so the focus wheel. So I can do it just with my thumb, just like this, or I can get a few fingers in here, just like that. So that's why I have this rod attachment attached to, this is too wide, there we go. That's why I have this rod attachment connected to this 15mm rod, coming down here to this connection point. And then this is a Tilta Nucleus Nano quick release plate. This is sold by Tilta. And then it allows me to pretty easily just pull my focus motor off, and I can keep pulling focus, as you can see, or I can attach it right over here to my wireless setup. Now, as you can see here, I have this wireless setup. Now, this is incredibly cool because on this guy, it allows me to, let's pull this whole thing off, to control focus right here with the focus wheel. And then also I can just move the camera around if I need to. And I can also flip over here to this is a Blackmagic Pocket control app. So I can now control all the parameters of the camera here on this phone. And then I can monitor it on this iPad. I can pull focus with this focus wheel. And this app, I actually can even pull focus with this as well, as you can see. The only problem is this is nowhere near as smooth. This works perfect for if you're setting it up for an interview and you just want the focus to stay where it is. It jumps just the slightest amount as you're focusing because it uses the internal focus motors of the lens. This one is significantly smoother and would work perfectly in a film setting. So this is what I depend on. But here you have a really, really nice director's or focus puller's rig that you can just walk around with. And I can even attach another monitor up here if I want to control 2 cameras, which I do on a regular basis. So I would control this 4K camera and the 6K camera that I'm filming with, both with this entire rig. Of course, because I don't have 2 HDMI transmitters, I would plug like this monitor in. So I'd plug this monitor, I would connect it to here and then have it just off the HDMI cable. So that's how that would go. But that works pretty well as well for being able to monitor 2 cameras at the same time. So this is a nice little, basically like a rig for your iPad. And it works great. I don't know that I may have forgotten 1 or 2 little parts of all this, but I think I have a pretty good wrap on everything that I've done for this now. The only places that I would say could be improved on what I have here is, I think it would be nicer to have maybe a bigger iPad. I got this as an iPad mini because I wanted to use it as a bigger monitor for my drones. And I think the full-size iPads are too big. So this one has seemed to be the perfect size for just, running and gunning, I guess, in that way. Besides, it's honestly amazing to have a focus puller just pulling focus while you're walking around using your gimbal. It just takes one less element out of what needs to be done, and you get a lot more consistency as long as you have a good focus puller with all of your shots. You don't have to go back and think, oh man, I missed focus there. I was like too busy trying to go inverted or get this movement just right or smooth enough, and my focus was off a little bit because I couldn't quite see it super well while I was there filming. No longer a problem because you have somebody just focused on that one thing, keeping focus. So let's look at this a little bit. I would say that maybe the other thing I would improve is maybe getting 2 Nucleus Nanos instead of a DJI focus motor and a Nucleus Nano setup. And if I was to do that, then I would probably figure out some way to attach the Nucleus Nano onto this rail. No, I think there's actually an attachment piece. You can attach it straight to this. And I would probably put it right there, or maybe I would get another hand grip and do the same exact thing I have going on this side, on the other side. The biggest problem with that is you lose a lot of control when you have your hand on the main control grip here. Like holding this button right here by my finger allows you to keep the camera in the same position and then switch into inverted mode really fast. Also, if you ever use your joystick to just kind of adjust the camera angle just a little bit before you start filming, I would never use this while filming because it's too jerky, but that would be a great way to do it. So another thing that I think is really fantastic about this setup is this. So I'm gonna move this around to this side. Perfect. And one thing I'm able to do, I would say relatively quickly, is, and let me get this guy back on. By the way, this also makes for a nice little focus puller's handle if you ever wanted to just pull that off and go a little lighter. So instead though, I'm gonna put this guy right on here. Ratchet that down nice and tight. And then this has a nice little trick to it. You can actually flip this guy up, and then you can just put your, it's a little easier that way. You can put your monitor right on the end of your handle like that. And the cool thing about this is it allows you to go inverted really, really easily and still see your shot. So I'll show you real quick. I like my right hand here because I'm right-handed, but if I go like that and then I hold down this trigger, it allows me to just go like that. And then I still have a monitor right here that allows me to, oh, there's my camera, filming it right there. And then I can pull focus on it. All that right here with this focus motor, or I can zoom the shot right here as well. And it makes it just so easy to transition from one to the other. So I'm gonna go back up. And there you go. It's just so nice and so simple to use. And then if I wanna go back, all I have to do, pull off this NATO clamp, drop this guy down. There's really low tolerance on the clearance for that when you have this guy up. But I like it up more. It's just a little easier to get out when you're trying to take things off. So there you go. Back to that position. There's that. And you get to look at this ugly guy. And the other thing that you can also use if you weren't doing a lot of underslung stuff, in there it is just mount the monitor downward like that. Because again, when you go inverted, and I'm just gonna flip this around. When you go inverted, now I have a screen right here that I can look at and follow all the shots. So if I wanted to just hold it like this is actually not a bad position. It's not as good as the other one where it comes up and around, but this totally works. And that's also really easy to just flip around that way. So there we have it. Or if you wanted to even do it possibly even easier, just go like that. I don't know if you saw that or not, but basically I can just loosen this, flip it around, and then tighten. If you wanted to do that too. So lots of different options for getting that thing to turn around. Now let's jump into this quick release plate. I think that's the last main element that really makes this thing sing. So I'll jump into that now. To show you what I'm talking about, I'm going to power this down and power pretty much everything else down. So I'm going to pull these focus motors out. So here I have the quick release plate, and here you can see these two connection points and then the third here with the lens. And then here's where the focus motors attach all onto this guy. These are the two tapped holes that I have. And so let me just take this apart real quick and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'll probably start with this one. So it looks like I'm quite loosen enough. There it is. Okay, there you go. Or this is the quick release plate that I've partially bought, partially engineered. And there you have it. So again, these two holes that I tapped, these screws, and here you should be able to see really clearly the height difference between these two screws. So you can see how much taller one is than the other and why one needs that extra little space so that it can fit into this guy. And this is actually kind of like mounted down, but It's just 2 washers with that foot. Now you can also contact Metabones and buy a separate foot that extends down. That's probably the more elegant way to do it. This is just the way that I needed to do it quickly. But yeah, it's kind of stuck on there now. I could probably pull it and be fine, but I don't really want to. These focus gears are so nice. They're so nice. And then lastly, here we have this guy. So again, screwed right in. So lastly, we have this guy where these are both screwed directly into the tripod quick release plate. And this is an offset plate. So you can see this is the channels where it slides into the tripod attachment. And this is where the camera goes. On this one, you can also put it there if you have a system where you want like to slide the camera back and forth. I think that's a little bit weird, but you could do that. And this is the same thing that I have right here. So this is the same amount of space that I had here that we have here. And then on the bottom, it would be the same space here. It would be the same spacing here that I have up here for those with the holes. And you can see just how that's what the plate looks like now. Just got those 2 little tapped holes in it. And then just attach this guy and you're good to go. This Asun Cine Eye, I have it at this weird angle because then it shifts the weight over, and then I don't need to add one of these little weight arms to the Ronin S, which attaches right here. If I probably need to loosen it a little bit. So this would attach right there. So it's just the biggest difference that makes is just takes a little bit of weight off if I just have this shifted over to the side instead of pointing directly forward. So it kind of acts as a little extra counterweight in its own by being over there. And as you can tell, when it's rotated like this, I still have access to all these buttons. My finger can slide underneath here and hit all the normal function buttons of the camera, just barely though. I think that covers everything that I was going to go over with this. So hopefully you guys have gained something. I've seen a few people post their ultimate Ronin S setups online. They're very different from what this is. This, I believe, gives a far broader usage out of it. And I think you can get just, oh man, it works so good. I just love it. One system that I'll use a lot is I'll have the Ronin, so I'll have this camera just live on this Ronin S for any kind of gimbal shot. And then I'll have the Blackmagic 6K on set on a tripod, or we'll set that on a dolly, or shoulder rig mounted, something like that. That one's a little bit kind of gets thrown into lots of different situations, while this one just kind of lives on this Ronin S. It just allows you to turn it all on, pick it up and go, and get really nice stabilized shots. And again, really nice focus pulls, and all being shot on either 4K or 6K in the Blackmagic RAW format, which I'm convinced is the best format to shoot in of all cameras. Has such nice compression, and it has smaller file sizes if you use the right compression setting than ProRes, but you get so much more latitude and so much more color. So so much easier to work with in post, ultimately. All right, I'm out of breath now. So again, hopefully somebody gleaned something from this, and yeah, have a great day. Happy shooting. If you want to subscribe to me, go for it. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter to me. I do contract work. This is just something that I thought would be helpful for people. So see you on the next one, guys.